Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 6. So The Flash is on again this week, which makes sense and isn't surprising, seeing that the show has started again, and we will have Episode 5, otherwise known as, or otherwise titled as Kiss Kiss Breach Breach. And this will be a Cisco heavy and, somewhat Cisco focused episode that should really, I guess, either bury even deeper the vibe storyline or the vibe side of Cisco, or resurrect that vibe storyline. I think if you were going to put a bet on it, I guess you would say that he would somehow get his powers back, or at least some aspect of his powers back in this episode, rather than them completely writing that out for good. I have seen some people theorizing that Breacher, who will be in this episode, will play a role in, maybe in some way giving Cisco the remainders of his powers back. But based off the trailer, it seems that the metagene and the core of Cisco's powers are still within him, and that cure from the end of last season is simply suppressing them rather than curing them, if that makes sense. So this should lead to Cisco having issues in the opening of the episode, which will then bring in Breacher, even though I'm sure there is another reason, maybe a more emotional reason for Breacher showing up, or at least sticking around for longer in the episode. But in this video, we're going to be going over a bunch of new stuff for the upcoming episodes of The Flash for this season, ranging from episode 6 all the way up to post-Crisis on The Flash, so around episode 10 and 11. But of course, throughout the video, it would be awesome if you could let me know all of your various opinions and stuff, and just theories, opinions, comments, all that in the comment section down below. Interested to see what you have to say and what you are thinking. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and you're excited from what we go over in this video, why not drop a like on it? But first up, we are going to be going over some stuff for episode 6, which is otherwise entitled License to Elongate. So this is obviously a Ralph episode, and as you can hopefully some of you might get from the title, it's a bit James Bond-esque. Now, the first thing around this episode is that Danielle Panabaker is actually directing the episode, so that should lead us to not really expecting too much Caitlin, but I guess Killer Frost in the episode, because I'm assuming that at this point she's still Killer Frost, full time. So yeah, I wouldn't be expecting much of her, but to be honest, I wouldn't be expecting a lot of other characters outside of Ralph and Barry in this episode. Obviously, they'll be in the episode, but they'll be minor roles for the other characters, and it wouldn't surprise me if some characters aren't even in the episode, maybe like Cisco and stuff like that, because as the synopsis will say in a second, there is a side storyline outside of Barry and Ralph. Now, just a little bit of bad news before we get into the deeper workings of episode 6. This is probably going to annoy a lot of people, or most people, but I think some of us were expecting it because it always happens every season, especially in the first half. There will be a week with no Flash between episode 5, so this week's episode we're about to watch in a couple of days, and this episode, episode 6. Now, Arrow won't be on that week either, which is weird. So that week, I think they are replaying the season premieres for both of those shows. But yeah, there is the heads up for those that weren't aware. It's better than previous seasons, or at least last season. I think last season we had 2 breaks in the first half, which was killer. People hated it, especially me. It wasn't good. So just 1 break, I think, is fine. But yeah, in regards to episode 6, License to Elongate, which we have to wait an extra week for, we're going to go over the synopsis/description for that episode and point out anything that needs to be pointed out and discussed any further. Barry turns his attention to prepping Elongated Man for life after Crisis and without the Flash, but Ralph ultimately teaches Barry a lesson. Meanwhile, Cecile faces her own moment of self-discovery while helping a recuperated Chester P. Runk reclaim his identity. So the first thing to go over is obviously the whole Ralph and Barry storyline for this season. Now, obviously, in episode 3 and 4, we had Killer Frost, get a focus on from Barry. Focus on, is that even a term? Anyway, get the focus from Barry, and then episode 4, we saw it happen with Cisco, and there's usually little side things that happen where, the actual person that Barry's trying to guide and stuff might teach them a lesson or help them in something else that they weren't expecting. So there's always been a bit of a surprise for Barry, I guess you could say, in those episodes. So Barry's really obviously focusing on Team Flash. And before anyone goes, oh, well, there's other members of Team Flash, the people that Barry are focusing on, or is focusing on, are the people that are going to be going out onto Central City and protecting them. I guess you could argue, well, that doesn't make sense with Cisco because he doesn't have his powers, but obviously that's going to happen, and the show is just sort of working around that, even though Barry wouldn't know that, if that makes sense. But then again, Barry would have seen that vision of all of them getting killed and Cisco in his vibe suit, so maybe that's why he's preparing Cisco. Who knows? But we already sort of knew that episode 6 would be that episode for Ralph because there was all those set photos coming out, and we got the title for the episode and stuff. So there's no real surprise that this is the episode where Ralph does get that focus. Now, Ralph and Barry are teaming up in Midway City. Now, Ralph did mention and sort of set this up, the whole Midway City trip in last week's episode 4, I'm pretty sure it was. mentions Midway City, so it pretty much sets this all up. Now, Midway City is a pretty interesting location for, I guess, the Arrowverse, also in the comics in general, but I guess specifically for the Flash, because obviously it is the city where the Hawk, so Hawkgirl and Hawkman, protected before they were picked up for Legends. I don't know if they ever mentioned if they went back to Midway City, but that's where they reside in the comics as well. But Midway City is also the city in which Patty Spivot went to. This is the city that the school was at, that Patty Spivot went to. It's where she was going when she left the Flash in season 2. So I wonder if there'll be any Patty Spivot references. I think there would be. I don't think they'd avoid that, but it might be like a little thing, mention in passing, like Barry going, "Oh, Midway City, I know someone from there," or something to do with Patty. I'm sure they'll mention her. I have to wait and see. Now, Ultraviolet, who was the assassin, we'll just call it the assassin for now, that we met in episode 2, I think it was, will be returning in this episode. Once again, set photos, we saw this character there, and I just thought episode 6 was going to be the introduction, so when she showed up in episode 2, I was like, oh, damn, they've set her up here, and then she's going to appear in episode 6. So that was very surprising, but she's going to be returning in this episode. It's going to be interesting to see if she's teamed up with someone, or she's targeting a certain someone, and then the Flash and Ralph sort of get intertwined in that, and they're just here at the same time this is all happening. Going to be interesting. But this might deepen a storyline that might play in the back half a bit more, which we will bring up, in a second in the video. So that'll be interesting. Now, Chester P. Runk is back, so what up, party people? I think we're all expecting him to come back. I just don't think we're all certain when that would happen. But a lot of people have been asking, like, if Chester was to come back, what role will he play this season? Like, I like the character from the brief time we've spent with him. But the argument always comes up, and I think it has to come up again this time, is whether Team Flash is already too full. Can we really handle another person coming in, working in Star Labs and all of that? And I think you could say, yes, you could argue at the moment it's probably 1 or 2 people full in regards to when everyone's there. It's just like, wow, this is a lot of people. It's pretty crowded. I think at the moment we're just barring the 3 heroes. It's not too bad. But when you get a lot of people in there and then guest characters coming in, just like, wow, this is too many people in a small space. But the thing is with Chester, it might be vital to have him there for the big bad takedown in the second half. It depends like what route they go with, like what the big bad specializes in, or what's a way to counter them and stuff like that. But I don't think Chester's going to be someone that's probably here post this season unless he's really, really popular. I think he's probably character brought in to sort of counter what's going on in the back half, but that's for us to wait and see. Now, one other interesting thing for a future episode which involves some post-crisis activity is that Aminette Black is returning now. I know a lot of people might not like that because a lot of people didn't like the character, but Katie Sackhoff, who played Aminette Black, did post her script cover on Twitter. So she's coming back for at least 1 episode now. Episode 10 is pretty much done, I think. So this is most likely for episode 11, unless this was a delayed video. Like she waited to post it for a week or something after she was done filming episode 10. But I'd presume she got the script for episode 11, she's reading it, and then she's going to be in that episode whenever they start filming it in the next week or so. Now, I guess the big thing is whether her return might hint at the storyline for the back half of the season. So in episode 2, when Ultraviolet showed up, obviously the whole thing about Ultraviolet was that she was the cousin of Allegra. I think that was the name, the girl that now works with Iris. She was the cousin of Allegra, and she was like an assassin that was taken in by some organization. Now, this organization is Black Hole from the comics, which is DC Rebirth stuff. Now, the thing that they could do is that because, Aminette Black was sort of, in that group of metahumans, maybe they are being hunted by Black Hole for their work, or they're targeted as like test subjects or something along those lines. Obviously, that's the whole reason that Ultraviolet was taken in, because she had the metagene. Now, episodes 7 and 8, just before Crisis, which will follow this episode 6, obviously, because 7 and 8 follow 6. This is math with Pagey. Obviously, that's just before Crisis, so this should hopefully maybe tease what's going to happen in the, after Crisis. If not, straight up just let us, the audience at least, know who is a threat in the back half, or tease it heavily, which will most likely be connected to Black Hole in some case. Black Hole will play a part. It just matters whether they're a big part or they're just sort of like a side piece, if you want to call it, for that back half, and maybe they're trying to hunt the villain, or the villain is a cause of them, or something along those lines. With Black Hole being there, I guess there's probably 3 choices for who the big bad is, I think, if Black Hole is tied, and they're going to play a big part in the back half. Red Death is one that I know a lot of people bring up. He's probably the least likely out of the 3 contenders, I would say, unless they change him up completely. But because of Crisis, you never know, they might introduce some sort of weird version of the multiverse, that's in there, which Red Death is connected to. So maybe they could go down that route. But I don't know, if Black Hole's there, I don't know if we can really do Red Death. I think you'd probably lean towards another character. And the other 2 choices are, I guess, Godspeed. We saw him showing up in episode 1. He could be tied to, Black Hole with that weird screech. Maybe he's a a dud test subject or something that Black Hole's coming up with, but he's there, like he's in episode 1, so it's always important to remember the Godspeed, and he was the 4th that showed up, so it's always important to keep that in mind with him, because he could just show up again and actually be the big bad, but it could be some like OP, fully roided, steroid munching Godspeed out there, which would be crazy. But the most likely is probably Negative Flash, which was Mina Darwan from the comics. They might change it up and make it another character, but a form of Negative Flash. Now in episode 7, or actually in specifically episode 8, it does look like Barry becomes the Negative Flash from the comics. Now he doesn't stay, this is like a short thing in the comics, and it will be a short thing on the TV show as well, but this might spur on or lead on to someone else taking up that Negative Flash mantle, whether it be maybe like when Barry's Negative Flash, maybe he bleeds and someone gets that blood and it goes in them and it turns them into some like sort of Negative Flash speedster, something along those lines. But if Black Hole is connected, I would say Negative Flash is definitely the lead runner, no pun intended, for the big bad in the second half. But with Aminette Black being back there, the whole group of metas, that might be a clue as to what's going on. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions. Who do you think the big bad in the back half is going to be? Do you think it's tied to all this Black Hole stuff? Or do you think they're just going to be maybe a villain for the opening handful of episodes for the back half, and then we'll get someone else? Let me know all of your opinions in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.